So look at this, for example. What they're going to do is they're going to quote you a nominal rate. And just like question 3.5, they're going to tell you this bank is going to offer you 50%. The other bank is going to offer you 50%. The other bank is going to offer you 60%. Now, you must very well look at how these things are being compounded. One is compounded daily. The other is compounded quarterly. And still the other is compounded annually. So this one is not going to change. Because if it's compounded annually, guys, again, if it's compounded annually, it means that the quoted rate, the rate that they quote you, is the effective rate. So 16% is 16% because it is compounded annually. So the only time the effective rate is also the same as the quoted rate, it's when it's compounded annually. I hope that that's, but if they say compounded quarterly, how many periods for a year when you're dealing with quarters? How many quarters in a year? 4. That's why you can see here, look at the calculation here quickly. And I do this so quick to show you how you do this so quickly, right? You divide the rate, 0.15, right? 15%, 15%, decimal, 0.15, divided by 4, right? Plus 1. So this is very important. I put it in big because when you don't practice, there's always a problem. See, you do this calculation first, you add plus 1, and then you compound it by m.
Okay.
Minus 1. Is it something that you can do?
Yes.
Are you sure? Shall we try it? So for example, here we have a 15. I have my calculator here. I want you to take a, remember, this is a tutorial. Practice together with me. Right. So 0.15, right? Remember that 0.15? What is it? 15%.
Yeah.
Let me repeat again, because I will always get one of those students who is going to make me so angry because you don't know how to do your decimals. 15% means 15 divided by 100. That's why we say when you look at 15%, automatically, from now on, you are an entrepreneur. When you see 15%, you know 15% means 0.15. You don't need even to do anything. Okay? So divided by, we are taking the first one. The first one says that it's compounded daily. How many periods is daily in a year? We have 365 days. Yeah, so you divide that, 0.15 divided by 365. There we go. Plus 1. Remember what I said? You start by the calculation in parentheses here. Let me show you again. Come on, guys. Remember again, I put it. Start by this calculation first. Where are my errors here? Start by this calculation first in parentheses. Yes. Then you add 1.
Yes.
To the power of the period, right? Remember our period is what?
It's 365.
So how do we add the power here? We add the power like this. On your calculator, you will see X and Y there. That's the power. 3, 6, 5. Look at what it gives you there. So now, when you have finished that calculation, remember again, number 1 operation is this one. Number 2 is to add the +1. And the last one, number 3 step, step 3. Okay, let me just make sure here. This is your first step. This is your second step. Okay, let me see if my stylus actually is working. And your third step. All right, my stylus is here, is working. This is faster because I can write with a pen. And your third step here is this one. Third step. It's faster like this, huh? To have a pen is really faster. So, do we agree? First step,
Yes.
second step, third step. Oh, the third step. Oh, I can even add it. Okay, so my bad. Let me make sure that none of you would say, but we didn't understand this. So this is the third, putting the power there, putting the
Is
power
the third
there
step.
is the third step. The fourth step is even this one. The fourth step. Which is
So
to
can I just
minus.
ask you a question?
Yes.
At which point do we round off, or do we just do the entire
No.
calculation
We
before
are
rounding
not
off?
even there. Put the fifth step. I'm gonna put it for you.
Okay.
So remember, here we are at the third step, right? Minus fourth step minus 1. Look at what it gives us. 16. You see this one. Oh, remember that this is a decimal.
Yes.
In percentage, we multiply it by what?
100.
By 100. So here we have the percentage. So our percentage is 16.17984444. Right? Are we in agreement?
Yes.
Now, if they tell you round off after 2 decimals, right? 2 decimals is 1 and 7. So now 1 and 7, that's where we're going to round. That's where we're going to cut. So it's going to be like this. Let me take this and let me show you. I'm going to put it here. Do you see it? So if you have to round off by 2 decimals, so you will take 1 and 7, that's the second decimal. But now the third decimal is going to determine what the second decimal will be. If it is 5 and above, so we're going to round off 7 to 8. That's right. Simple. That's what I want you to give me as a percentage. And that's it. Do you see here?
Yes.
16.18. So that's how you can see. This one sounded like 15%. I'm going to pay less, right? Because you have a 15%, 15%, and then a 16%. So someone, if you're in a rush and you don't understand these things, you're going to just say, oh, I will take the first bank because it's 15%, it's less than 16%. But if you put it in the effective rate, you didn't inquire properly.
Yeah.
Because if you put it in effective rate, it's actually 16%. It's actually 16.18. So it's greater than even the 16% of 10 bank. All right. So we need you to understand that. Simple.
Yes.
All right. We jump quickly to learning unit 4. And when I'm looking at learning unit 4, one of the things that many of you struggle with, remember, I'm just going by what some of you are struggling with over the years, but nobody brought your questions because I am pretty sure that some of you have not been reading, but it's fine. It's fine. That's the reason why I organized this one, so as to start already pushing you. I have to push you because I don't want any of my students to fail. All right, all of you, I need 100% really pass rate. Not because it's gonna look good well on me, but I can't let my student fail such an easy module. It is easy. It's just basically based on some unknown fears because people are just saying, we're scared of numbers. No, numbers are beautiful. And this will speak to you as entrepreneurs and for your future as well. So break-even analysis. Remember, if what you've come to this point, you've been reading, I really appreciate. If you've gone through the recordings and the tutorials and the lectures, I really appreciate that. So the break-even analysis is a very simple one. Again, simple concept, but if you don't read them properly or understand them properly, they can start causing you serious problem. But why do we have to study this? Remember again, every business that you are doing out there, you always wonder, when am I going to recover my money? Whatever is the business, isn't it this the first thing you are wondering? Where am I going to get the capital? And when I get the capital, when am I going to pay back that capital? How many products would I need to sell before I break even and I start to make a profit? These are legit questions that an entrepreneur needs to be curious about. And so the calculations and the practice here is to make you very comfortable with that notion. All right? So the break-even analysis, it is, remember, I said it, I repeat again, why we are touching very much on manufacturing, because manufacturing is the most complex type of business you will see out there. If you understand the manufacturing, you'll be able to comprehend any other type of business because the most complex is the manufacturing. All right.
Yes.
And here we are touching on the cost volume profit, CVP. So when you see the cost volume profit analysis, it's the CVP. And before we introduce the concept of CVP and break even and all that, we start first of all by talking to you about what is marginal analysis. Marginal, it should ring to you as benefits. You are evaluating the benefits that arise from producing an additional unit of an activity. What is this linked to? If you've done economics, it's linked straight to economics.
Mm.
So the marginal, right? It's a beautiful concept that you need to understand. Marginal cost. What is marginal cost? What is marginal income? What is marginal cost ratio? Marginal income ratio? What are these things? Remember, we talked again about this benefit that arise from producing additional unit of an activity. Because
Yes.
it's all about that. How many things would I need to sell? Remember again, these questions, write them down. Entrepreneurs, write them down. That's what will push you even to study. Because I need to know this even for myself. That's the necessity of you studying this thing is like, I'm curious to know this because I'll find myself in that same situation when I'm doing business. And that's it. That motivates you.
Yeah.
So remember the marginal cost. So the marginal cost is the cost of producing an additional unit. When we are talking about the marginal cost, it's that cost if we want to produce one more unit, that additional unit, what is that cost? How much is it going to cost us to produce that additional 1 unit? So it is a variable cost. It can include selling, overhead, administrative expenses. That's the reason why we are touching especially on manufacturing, because remember, manufacturing, many little costs are involved. You cannot not look at those costs. Whether it's a shoemaking, whether it's whatever business you are doing out there. Last time I was explaining to you that even buying something from China, for me to make sense, should I buy from the US? Should I buy from China? Should I buy from South Africa? I need to take into account all these costs that are involved into it, right? Rate, taxes, and all this I need to take all those into account, right? So a quick example here. Now, are you ready? Let's go on a quick example. We have a marginal cost. They are telling us they're just going to change just a little bit. We've been actually doing, how many units have they been doing here? So they say that they increase the number of shoes they make to 800. The variable cost, including the selling cost to make one pair of shoe, is 50 Rand. The total variable cost to make 700 shoes is therefore 350,000. While the variable cost to make 800 shoes will be 40,000. So what they have done here, they want to show you that there have been a change in production from 700 to 800. What is that change? How many did they add? It's only
100.
100, right? Sure, it's only 100. So to just increase the production by 100. And what is the cost? How has it also been increased from 35,000 to 40,000? What is the quick difference? You can make that quick difference.
5,000.
45,000. So you can find actually the marginal cost very quick. How you do? 5,000 divided by 100. How much
Okay.
does it give you?
50 Rand.
50. That's the marginal cost. So this is just to make you understand what the marginal cost is. That cost of producing one more. So if I want to produce one more shoe, it will still cost me 50 Rand. So in this case, for example, the marginal cost did not change. All right? So marginal cost, marginal income. What is the marginal income? You probably have heard it, because sometimes it's called contribution margin. It is the difference between sales, so the selling price, for example, minus the variable cost. Okay? Let it sink in. What is marginal cost ratio? Remember we talked about the marginal cost? Now we're talking about the marginal cost ratio. It's just the marginal cost in proportion to the selling price. If you are looking at a unit, but if you are looking at the entire marginal cost, you just take the marginal cost divided by the sales multiplied by 100. Remember, because it's a ratio, we want to find a percentage. Easy. The marginal income ratio, very similar. We just want to find as a percentage. Okay, if you do that, you're not really going to understand. The best way to understand is this part. Always look at the first part is the definition. The second part gives you an example for you to understand. The marginal cost ratio indicates the portion of every rand of sales that represent marginal cost. For example here, if the marginal cost ratio is 60%, 0.6, right? 60% as a decimal, 0.6. So 0.6 or 60 cents of 1 rand represent the marginal cost. So every time you're looking at any business you are doing, you are looking at every rand that you are making. You know that 60 cents of that rand must go to cover the cost.
Mm.
Only 40 cents. Does this make more sense? Jesse, blessing. Where is it?
Yes.
So that's why we're doing this ratio, because quickly you can do, okay, so after I've done my calculation, so I know that 60% goes towards covering the cost, and 40 cents of each rent that I'm making is my actual revenue. Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why when you read, don't be frustrated by the definition part. Look at the practice, look at an example. A quick example makes everything in perspective. And that's, I want you, all of you, to understand this. It's going to quicken you, it's going to awake you to say, oh, by the way, then I don't need actually my lecturer, because I can go even much quicker. I will look at the examples, and the examples will help me understand much better. All right, so marginal income ratio, like we said, we do the same thing. We take the marginal income, we divide by sales, we multiply by 100, right? So why are we doing these calculations? It's very important because we come to the break even. So how do you find the break even? Remember we said, how many units do I need to sell for me to recover, or for me to cover the cost? For me to cover the cost, right? So what you do for the break even point in terms of units, if you want to find how many units do I need to sell, you take the total fixed cost, because what you want to cover is the fixed cost. Because the fixed cost, whether you sell something or not, you already incur it. Isn't it? You have a boutique or you have a shop, you have to pay rent. Whether you sell anything or not, the rent you have to pay, right? So that's why businesses need to take care of the fixed cost. What is the fixed cost? Things like your rent, your insurance. You see what I'm saying? Those things, they're not related to how many things you're going to sell, because these things must be covered, right? So that's why you take the total fixed cost. So don't only memorize the formula, understand the formula. Because my biggest concern as a businessman or a businesswoman is to cover that fixed cost, because that's my first concern. I need to pay rent, I need to cover insurance, I need to pay this, you know, all those things that you are paying. All right, divided by the marginal income per unit. Remember, like here in the example of this one for the shoes, the marginal income was 50. So you will take your total fixed cost divided by 50 to find the number of units for your break-even point. What is the break-even point? The break-even point is the point where you have covered all your cost, but you have not made any profit yet. Okay, you can also find that break-even point in terms of revenue. Okay, so you take your total fixed cost divided by the marginal income ratio. Marginal income ratio, right? Okay, let's jump into an example. And I love the examples that they put in front of you. Go through example 4.3 because it gives you a series of costs and it asks you one thing first: classify them, categorize them. Are they fixed cost or are they variable cost? Why did we do this? We did this so that we want you to understand what is a variable cost, what is a fixed cost. Simple. The factory supervisor's wage, what is it? It's a fixed cost. The rental, remember we talked about just rent right now. That's a fixed cost. Rate and taxes, whether you sell something or not, it doesn't matter. You need to pay your rate and taxes. All right? But your sales representative commission depend on how many units you sell, right? Advertising cost, fixed cost. The assistant salary relating to this manufacturing must be, make sure that you understand the question. assistant salary relating to the GSS, to relating to this project. All right? Short-term insurance, fixed costs. Is this making sense? Guys, remember we did this exercise? Quality controller, fixed cost. You pay him a fixed cost. But what will be your variable cost? Wood. Wood will depend on how many units you're going to produce. Sales representative commission, it's a variable cost. It's dependent on how many units you manage to sell. The commission, right, of a sales representative, salespeople, right? It's always based on the volume. Wood polish, glue nails, variable cost, variable cost. Why did we do this? So that we can find what is the total of the variable cost, what is the total of the fixed cost, and what is the total of everything? Variable plus fixed cost. So look at the total here. 20,000 is the fixed cost. 322,000 is the variable cost. When we put them together, we have a 342,000, right? So now what is the CVP? CVP, cost, volume, and profit analysis. The first step of the CVP is we need to find the variable cost per unit. We need to find the variable cost per unit. I put it there in your notes, step 1 of CVP, variable cost per unit. Now we have the variable cost. How are we going to find the number of the variable cost per unit? How many units are we producing? Based on 200 units. So we take the variable cost, the total variable cost divided by 200. This is our variable cost per unit. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Easy. Jesse, is that clear? Yes. All right. So now what is step 2? So we have the variable cost now. Step 2 is we need to find the contribution margin. Remember the contribution margin? What is it? The marginal income. We want to find, remember again when we were talking about 60 cents goes toward the cost and 40 cents goes toward what?
Profit.
The actual profit that we are making. That's what it's all about. What is the contribution margin? So in order for us to find the contribution margin, you take the selling price minus the variable cost. That's where your formulas, they must make sense. Because we take the selling price, we take that 60, remember that 60 cent that we are talking? It was so simple because when we were talking about 1 rand, we just look at what represents this, what represents this. When we're looking at the selling price, how much are we going to sell this for? It's VAT exclusive, not VAT inclusive, VAT exclusive. They tell you here, 300. Sorry, 3,000, my bad, 3,000. So whatever we're going to be producing, we're going to be selling them for 3,000. So the variable cost is 1,613. So 3,000 minus 1,613, right? Gives us 1,387 per unit. Remember again, marginal income per unit, always per unit. So how are we going to find the break-even point? Remember, what did I say again? I hope it didn't go over you. Our biggest concern is the fixed cost. That's our biggest concern because we need to cover that, right? So that's why when you want to find the break-even, you take the total fixed cost, which is 20,000, divided by that marginal income per unit. The marginal income per unit is 1,000. But that 300 excluding the VAT. Yeah, exclusive. Huh? Yes, it's exclusive. So you don't need to calculate VAT. If it was VAT inclusive,
So
then
I
you have to
think
calculate the VAT.
I was also confused by it because in the scenario it says 3,000 plus VAT.
Yeah, plus VAT, meaning VAT is a part.
So it hasn't been added. It's just,
It hasn't been added.
oh, okay.
That's why, look here, it says here, marginal income equal VAT exclusive selling price. VAT exclusive. So when they want to sell it, they need to add the VAT.
Okay.
You see, he made the strategic decision to price his product at the same price he paid the wholesaler for the predecessor, namely 3,000 plus the VAT. Okay, we are not. What is the VAT? How much is the VAT?
15%?
That's right. Why you were saying with a small voice? Because you're not sure.
Yes.
It must be second nature, guys, right? So you know your VAT. Is it 15% or is it 14%?
15.
15. Right. I like that, Jesse. Guys, that's the purpose of a tutorial. I just want to wake you up, because the more you wake up, the more you practice, and then we can have questions, share questions, and it can be quite bubbly because you need to keep yourself active until the final exam. You will see that you will do very well in your final exam. But if you take a long break between learning units, you're gonna struggle. But remember again, the fixed cost. Remember this graph. It's a very good graph. Actually, I've shared with you also another video where I go through a question with regard to the VAT, with regard to this graph, right? Because we have the fixed cost there. You can see the fixed cost, the total cost. You take the this curve for the variable cost plus the fixed cost. That's why this curve grows up here. Let me show you here. You see, there we go. My bad. This one, it grows to this because you take this, you add onto the fixed cost, then it gives you the total cost. So I'm sure all of you understand this. All right, but our biggest issue, right, was the 20K, right, which is the fixed cost. How are we going to find the break-even point per unit? We need to divide that by the marginal income. Remember, marginal income, because it is with your marginal income that you need to cover the fixed cost, because your other part, which is not marginal, right, which is your variable cost, goes to cover the variable cost. I hope it's logical, it's clear, right? Remember, your cost is divided into two things: the variable cost part and the fixed cost part. So the variable cost per unit, that will go to cover the variable costs. So how are you going to cover the fixed cost? You need to use your marginal income. Okay, so we know now that at 15 units, so when we sell 50 units, we would have covered all the fixed costs. So that's here. Check carefully. It's here, the break even. So we will break even here. So we have covered all our costs at that point. Everything above here, it's money in, baby. It's profit. Do we understand? So that's why this notion is very important for you as an entrepreneur. By the way, these are calculations we do in our head, right? You would agree with me. Whatever business you are doing, you do this calculation. You're like, but how many units will I need to sell in order to cover my cost and all that? And then you know when you have covered that, you are like, okay, now I'm making money now.
Mm.
Now I'm making money. Right. So we are just adding the calculations to that. But obviously you can find the units, the number of units, but you can also find the actual rent value of it. So how do you find the rent value? You take the total fixed cost, the same total fixed cost, but this time divided by the marginal income ratio.
Sure.
All right. The marginal income ratio, remember again, you take the marginal income divided by the selling price.
Mm.
Multiply by 100, right? But in this case, you just take the marginal divided by 3,000, and then you take the 20,000, right? 20,000 fixed costs, you divide that by, and you will find exactly this amount. Check your calculators, play with it around. Another thing for the CVP, the last one, is this part. They can give you now a target to say, what about you need to get maybe to 80,000 for the month? How many units do you need to sell to reach a target of 80,000 profit for the month? Very simple. You do this, you take the total fixed cost always. Remember, you always, if you want to find the number of units, start with the fixed cost. But this time, you're going to add the target profit. If your target is 80,000, right? You take your total fixed cost plus the 80,000 divided by the marginal income. Is that clear?
Yes.
Very clear, very simple. It's such an easy notion, but I want you to practice, because as soon as you play with it around and touch on some other questions, it will be quite clear. So this is income, right? The marginal income. All right, so let me see here. Oh, this was the example, right? So the target profit that they want is 80,000. So you take the 20,000 plus 80,000 gives you 100,000 divided by the marginal income per unit, which will give you need to roughly sell 73 units. Do you understand why we are always rounding up? Because you can't have half of a unit or a quarter of a unit, right? So that's why we just round it up. You can't take a unit and you cut it into two, in other words, right? So we round always up. So if you get a 72, you just round it to 73 units. All right, good questions. And one of the questions there is a video that, there's a tutorial for this question. So try it on your own, but there is a tutorial. It's the toughest question, the only question that will be quite challenging for you, but it's again the same thing we've done with the graph and all that. Guys, this is basic. This is pretty basic stuff. And if you finish your learning unit 3 and your learning unit 4, you wrap it up very well. That will be it for your foundational into financial management, because after this we're going to go into advanced financial management, and it's going to be beautiful, because like I said again, we want to give you a broad view, right? So that you are able to understand everything that is happening in a business on a financial side. All right, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I will wait for your questions on our chat. Jesse, Blessing, please post questions. So go through this. And again, like I said again, I repeat to everyone, it's good to jump straight into the practice, because the practice, when you are failing, it will tell you that there is a failure with regards to your understanding of the theory.
Mm.
So it's very important when you are failing a particular question, ask yourself, what do I not understand about the theory? So go to the theory, read again properly, and make your own notes, because most of the notes are already provided for you. So if you just go through my lectures, the notes are becoming yours. Obviously, the notes won't make sense if you're not going through the tutorials. The tutorials will show you the meaning of the notes. Then those notes become straight your notes. You love them. They become yours. Adopt them. But there is some other notes that you will need to take depending on your level of weaknesses or strength. So if you see there is really a notion that you are really struggling with, try to read it on your own and make it simple, or send the question to us on our chat. Let all of us deal with it. Wonderful. No, I agree with you. I agree with you, Jesse. By the examples and the exercise that are in the textbook, you will be fully ready. Fully ready. Yeah. And that's what I want you to do this week. Cover everything that is in the textbook. And then when you finish covering everything that is in your textbook, you have actual tests that I've made available to you. So you can take TLT2 that are there available to you. You practice, right? Those tests where you can take maybe 1 hour or 2 hours. Remember again, you go to your TLT, to your test prep, and in your test prep, you will see, right? In your test prep, you will see everything. So you take one, you do it on your own, you do it on your own. Then when you finish doing it, you go to the solutions and you check your solutions. And if there's something you're not understanding, your finance guy is available for you at any time. All right?
Yes,
So guys,
sir.
I will stop the recording here.